Hello, my name is Terry Haynes. I'm coming to you with another installment of my attempt on how to survive an EMP burst above the United States. Uh, to quickly recap something I've talked to you about before, EMP is electromagnetic pulse. It's the most dangerous weapon we have right now. One particular billionaire has said it's more dangerous than an asteroid or even an atomic weapon being unleashed on our nation. What happens is the all the solid state things, everything with a circuit board, is going to fry. Your computer is going to fry. Your cell phone is going to fry. There's parts in your car that's going to fry. Everything is going to stop, and it will have an extremely cascading effect because our electrical system is the thing that is probably, well, it's not probably, it is the most it's the central part of our grid. I'm going to define our grid. What I mean by our grid may not be necessarily what you define it as later on in other things, but if electricity stops, we crash. And so this is a very serious issue. I'm really surprised that somebody more qualified than me has not taken up this issue. And I think the reason is that everything I've seen on it is how do I survive, and my estimate of the situation that is exactly the wrong approach to it. It is how do we all survive? How does this community survive? And that's the approach that we need to start going with it. It's a Christian approach, loving your neighbor as yourself. It's a scary approach because if you do something such as putting a whole lot of food together in a pantry, then someone can come and take that away from you. But I think it's the best approach. By the way, only God can do this. I am not qualified. I'm a retired guy with health problems. I couldn't work 40 hours a week if I wanted to. And so, you know, I mean, this is an example of God using the weak things of the world to confound the wise. I really believe that we can do some of these things. Though today, I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about what we can do when our water supply stops, and it will. You know, if the electrical grid goes down, we will eventually have no water coming into our house. And when the food stops, now I'm only going to give you a few of the answers. I do want lots and lots of help on what the next step is, but I'm putting together a website. I don't know anything about websites either, so like I say, this really is an example of where the weak has to confound the wise, because nobody's done anything about it. The government has not done anything about it. No much more qualified person has done anything about it. How do we purify water? We not only have to get water to our house, but we have to purify it. How do you purify water? Well, you do it three different ways. You do it through chemicals, you do it through filtration, and the way that nature takes care of it, the way that God has given us nature, is distilled. The water goes to the ocean, it becomes clouds, it comes back over the landmass, and it rains back to us, and it gets distilled. Distillation, I haven't found a good distillation product. There is a good filtration product I hope to tell you about in just a minute. But the problem is more and more of our water is already polluted. Now, I'm making this tape in Michigan. We have a real problem in Flint. And this is something that more and more is becoming a national issue. People are becoming aware of what's going on in Flint, but it's becoming a national issue because our water pipes are becoming corroded all over the nation. It's not just this one place. Even in Michigan, it's not just this one place where our water is becoming polluted. So I'm going to recommend to you that you get a good filtration system in your house, either reverse osmosis if you want to go that way, but I think the better way is to get a gravity-fed water filter, and I'm going to recommend the Big Berkey water filter. I told you I'm going to have a website. We are going to sell that. If you want to just email me, I will find somebody to sell it to you. But the other thing we can do with water, we can capture the rainwater. We can find a place to live. If you need to find another place to live, you can find a place to live by a stream or by a river. We should get more and more hand-operated pumps. In the country where you have a well, the electricity goes off. You don't have any water either. But there are ways, and I'll try to notify you more and more about this. There are ways to have even the pump that you have to be hand-operated that are not necessarily that expensive. As a matter of fact, I think I can put together a system by which the average family can protect themselves against the effects of an EMP attack on the United States for the cost of one vacation time for their family. I think I can put something together that would be that inexpensive. We can dig a well in our own, either a small well or hand-operated pump. I think would be one of the ways to do. Food. What do we do with food? Now, the reason I wanted to put these two together is because if you buy a big Berkey water filtration system, and there's others too if you can't get hold of that, but if you buy one of those, then it will pay for itself for most people, because you'll pay much less than 10 cents a gallon for filtered water for the next 10 or 15 years is how long these things last. And so this will pay for itself. I wanted to find the things that are actually a little bit cheaper, a little bit they will pay for themselves, instead of you going out and buying water. I don't know how we ever got to this part in our society where we buy water, but it's just the pop is no good for us. It has no nutrition. I guess that's a good option if you have nothing better. Food. I'm going to recommend that you put together a 6 weeks pantry. Everybody who's able to do it, unless you live in a very small apartment or something like that, put together a 6 weeks pantry. And I want to tell you what to do with it in a minute, but it's for yourself, but it's also for your neighbors. How do we do that without you having nothing left when we're all done? Before we do that, I want to talk about this pantry will pay for itself. You can afford to build something with wood or buy one of the structures that you can buy to put this extra food on. You can afford to put that much extra money into it because it will pay for itself. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to buy food after you buy this shelving. I want you to buy food at a good cost, something that you would have used anyway in the next couple of months. And just keep doing that. Just keep doing that. Just keep doing that. But the next step is I want you, and that will help you pay for itself. By the way, even buying it at a regular cost is probably going to save you money if you get to where you have a 6-week grocery store in your own house. Hold on. If you buy a 6-week grocery store in your own house, not only will it be convenient, you can go downstairs and get what you want, but food is going up faster. And I used to be able to say food and energy costs are going up much faster than the rest of inflation. So I think in a time of, let's say, hyperinflation or something like that, the fact that you have food is going to save you money. So, but the first step, buy things that are on sale. The second step, though, is to buy things as they're really needed. 6 weeks of this, 6 weeks of that, 6 weeks of, and get yourself to where you know if everything collapses and money is worth nothing, you will have 6 weeks worth of food. Uh, I recently saw a video. I want to give in my website. I want to give the URLs on this, but it was a fellow talking about how he had put together, bought in quantity beans and rice and some other ingredients so that he can make himself a year's worth of beans and rice. Now that is pretty nutritious. You have just about everything you need in beans and rice. And how much did it cost him? He bought himself some pails to put it in. He bought himself beans and rice, put it in those pails. It was about $200 for an entire year's worth of beans and rice. This should not be something that overwhelms you. This is something that little by little you can take care of. Within 1 year, you can take care of this. And what I want to do is I want to have things, I want to have these policies, these ways of doing things in such a way that if all of society does it, it's not going to collapse society. And there's some ways to do that, isn't it? What I've already said. Now let me give you another option. If you have a little bit of space and you can play around with something, you could put together yourself an aquaponics greenhouse. What is aquaponics? Aquaponics is aqua, water, ponics, and so it's water and you grow some vegetables, but what's on the other end of that? And the other end of that is fish. And so what happens is fish will pollute the water, but you take that polluted water, you pump it to the water-grown vegetables that you're going to grow in your greenhouse, and that's stuff that's polluting the water, that's making it to where the fish eventually can't breathe in that water. That stuff is good. It's nutritional to vegetation. And so you've done what nature has done. The plants and the animals work good toward each other. They're interdependent. And so it's not that expensive. I've heard quotes of about $300 for building a double-layer plastic-coated greenhouse. Build it with plastic and build it with PVC pipe. Put it together into a structure, and it's about $300 for putting together an aquaponics system. Folks, this is achievable for a lot of families. So now, what was I saying before about it sort of doesn't matter if you have a lot of stuff. I'd like you to enlist your neighbors to do the same thing. This is only going to get you through 6 weeks of a terrible situation, but not the aquaponics thing, but saving 6 weeks worth of food. But during that 6 weeks, you could start growing what you need in this garden. And I want to. Have you ever heard the story of stone soup? It's told in a few different ways, but let me tell you the story as I remember it, and the story as I really mean to have this happen. Stone soup is a story of a city or a small town that was starving. It had some rough times and it was starving. So this guy came into the town. And he says, how about we make some stone soup? He says, stone soup? You can't make stone soup. He says, I got the stone to do it. So they put together a kettle, put a fire under it, and they said, this is my stone. He says, let's put it. So they were warming up the fire, and a guy says, I got some carrots to go with that. He says, good, that's what we need. Yeah, stone and carrots, that's what we're going to need. And another guy says, onions. I got onions. Someone else comes, I have some meat that's left over. It's going to spoil. I don't know why I even have it. It's good now, though. It's just, let's put it in there. So now we got meat and vegetables. They added this and they added that. And all of a sudden, the entire village was able to eat. Now that's the idea of cooperation. And that's what we need to do with this thing. we need to have the Amish barn builder idea of cooperation. And so I'm going to give you some more specifics as we go along. But let's have the idea of stone soup with our food. Let's have the idea of saving six weeks. You know, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was a farmer, and every harvest time, she would pick the various fruit trees and pick various things, and she did a lot of canning. Now we've lost those skills, but you know what? You can save money by canning, by brining, by smoking, through various things, and those skills need to come back, because I think we're headed for some real rough time. So that's all I have for you today. More details inside the website.